When I introduce you. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this Monday's special webinar series on CENTA International Teaching Professionals Olympiad, popularly known as TPO. This will be happening every Monday, focused on different tracks of TPO. Today is the 11th webinar of this series on decoding CENTA International TPO Economics. And today with us, we have Mr. Sumit Mandwani, who I'll be introducing shortly. Good evening, everyone. Happy to see so many of you joining us, and apologies for the 5-minute delay in starting the session. We had some technical issues on our end. I apologize for that delay. Okay, so let me just share a little bit about Sumit. Sumit is working as a professional development coordinator and economics and sociology teacher at Prometheus School. Further, he is an Erickson and Lanning concept-based curriculum and instruction certified independent trainer. Sumit we are very, very proud to say, is a multiple-time TPO topper in economics, especially secondary economics. He has secured an overall national rank 2 in CENTA TPO 2019 and was a senior secondary topper in the senior secondary economics topper in 2018 and 19. He was also one of the select few who traveled to Dubai in 2018 to the Global Education and Skills Forum as a center topper and received an award from Mr. Brian Lara. He has presented at various international conferences such as IB Virtual Conference, Asia Pacific, IB Global Conference, the Asian Conference of Education, the Canadian International School TeachConX, etc., to name a few. Sumit has led workshops for school teachers across India and is continuously always working with teachers to further strengthen the teaching learning process. He is a strong believer in research-based pedagogy, along with the use of evidence and intentional curriculum building practices. Sumit is someone who strives to learn continuously because students learn best when they know that their teachers are learning as well. Welcome on board, Sumit. We are extremely happy and honored to have you with us today.
Thank you. Thank you
Welcome.
so much. Well, thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction.
Awesome. I can see so many of you have already joined us, and I can see on the chat many of you sharing good evenings with us. Would be great if you can also share which school you're joining from, which city you're joining from, and we can quickly do a round of shout outs for some of you, and then we can get started with today's webinar. I can see Sandhya Rao ma'am joining us from Clare's Convent School, Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh. I can see Narendra Singh sir, who's a PGT physics teacher from JNV Dausa. Good evening, sir. I can see Miss Hema Gupta from Central Academy, Barautu, Ranchi, Jharkhand. Wow, so many different places. Great. I can see with Aurora ma'am from Lotus Valley International School, Gurgaon. I see someone joining us from Sri Lanka, Anushka Tenakun. Hello, ma'am. Great to have you. I can see Rabindra Jha, sir, Dr. Rabindra Jha from DPS, Chas Bokaro. Good evening, sir. Happy to have you. Great. I'm seeing a lot of you adding to where you're joining us from. Great. Rita Datta ma'am from DPS Nashik. I see a PGT computer science teacher joining us from Kolkata. Great. Of course, we are doing economics today, but we are extremely happy to see a lot of other subject teachers also joining. Of course, everybody is welcome. So I'm just going to quickly start sharing my screen and we'll get started with today's webinar. I hope my screen is visible to everyone. I think some of you can just put a thumbs up or a yes on the screen. Okay, great. So I'll get started. Thank you so much. Like I said, today we are doing our CENTA TPO webinar series. We are in webinar 11, which is we're going to be decoding economics, specifically the senior secondary economics track, which is a track that's been in the TPO since many, many years now and is a very popular track among everyone. So before I get started with what we're going to do in today's webinar, As many of you might know, the first edition of the CENTA TPO was in 2015, and we are proud to be hosting the 8th edition of CENTA International TPO this year in the 8th year of CENTA's existence. The CENTA TPO was started because CENTA is fundamentally about creating career growth, reward, and recognition and opportunities for teachers. However, when you look at career growth for teachers, especially in the education system, it happens over a longer period of time. So, we wanted to introduce something that will lead to immediate reward and recognition for competent teachers. And the purpose of the CENTA TPO was to have an annual competition where teachers can compete in a large scale forum and showcase their competencies and get rewarded immediately for the same. We have been fortunate to have partners, great partners with us over the years, like Reliance Foundation, Education World, etc., who have supported us and provided these rewards and recognitions for winning teachers. So, and of course, all the teachers, everybody who's been part of us and with us in this journey, very grateful for all of you. So you can see the some of the teachers who have actually been part of this journey with us. You can even see Mr. Sumit there in the images below. So yeah, it's been a great run, and we are very happy to be in our 8th year currently. Coming to today's webinar, we will be covering four main things in the webinar today, starting with an overview of CENTA International TPO. Then we'll move on to details of the prelims, the format, mark scheme, competencies covered, etc. And then after that comes the main part, which our guest facilitator, guest faculty for today, Mr. Sumit, will be doing, which is unpack the CENTA TPO economics track using some sample questions. And then we will actually figure out, what are some ways, and we'll actually share some useful resources that you can use to prepare for CENTA International TPO, the TPO this year, right? Great. So before we move on to that, like I said, let's do a quick overview of the TPO. So we began way back in 2015, and in 2015 the TPO was prevalent or relevant, or was taken up only in 7 cities, and cut to 2019 it was taken up in 75 cities and 2 countries. Cut to 2022, and now, of course, spilling over to 23, we are now fully online and international as a Olympiad. Let's move on to a few other things about the TPO. In 2015, we had only 9 subject tracks. And in 2022, we have 37 subject tracks this year. And some of the new additional tracks that we have added is our primary school EVS, a lot of Hindi language tracks, co-curricular, and more. From 2015 to 2020, we only had multiple choice questions as part of the Teaching Professionals Olympiad. From 2021 onwards, and of course subsequently in 22 and now this year's TPO as well, we decided that just MCQs is not giving a full flavor or full picture of the teacher, and therefore we introduced a video assessment or a verbal communication component as well. So in a nutshell, the International Teaching Professionals Olympiad is fully online. It has 2 stages. There's the prelims, which is what everybody takes up now. It's called the TPO prelims, and it will go on till March. And once the prelims are done, whoever meets a certain cutoff, those toppers will be invited to the finals. It's fully international, in the sense anybody can take it up from anywhere, and it's a 2-hour test for prelims with 50 MCQs and 2 short videos. So this is in a nutshell what the CENTA TPO looks like this year. Okay, now let's quickly move on to the format of the TPO prelim. So the TPO prelim, like I mentioned earlier, has 50 MCQ questions, 2 videos, and is for a total of 100 marks. Within this, the multiple choice questions itself are 50 questions, and they account for 75 marks. And then there is the verbal communication test, which is the video test, and that has 2 questions for 25 marks. Many of you may already know this, but this is for those who are not very familiar with the TPO, the TPO prelim format, is why we are sharing this information. Let's break down the multiple choice questions further. So, what is the 50 questions or 75 marks really made up of? So, you have four sections within the multiple choice questions test, starting with subject expertise, which are 20 questions for 30 marks. Then there's subject pedagogical content knowledge, also known as subject PCK, which are 8 questions for 10 marks. Then you have the common pedagogy section, which are 12 questions for 20 marks. And then you have professional competencies, which are 10 questions for 15 marks. So, this is the overall breakup of the multiple choice questions test and the 50 questions, 75 marks. And in today's webinar, we will be looking at this subject section, right? We will be looking at some examples of subject expertise questions and subject PCK questions. Now let's move on to the verbal communication test. So the verbal communication test has two videos. Video 1, which is a subject specific verbal evaluation, very specific to your subject, in this case, senior secondary economics. And then you have video 2, which is subject agnostic. So the purpose of video 2 is to only test for your communication skills and not really any subject skills. In today's webinar, we will also be looking at examples of what video 1 and video 2 assessment questions can look like. So I'll just pause on this slide for a minute so that all of you can have a quick look and can maybe, internalize what the prelims format is going to look like. Okay. Great. So now that we have gone through a bit of the overview of the TPO, we have looked at the format of this year's TPO prelims. I think it's very important for us to also share with you a flavor of what it feels, what the look and feel of the overall test looks like, and which is what we have here. So, like I said, the multiple choice questions, which are 50 questions for 90 minutes or 75 marks, right? So, this is divided into four sections. And if you see the below screen, it is done on a platform called Aon, and this is how it looks. So every candidate can see their candidate ID, can see the amount of time that they have spent, amount of time that's left for them, etc. And you can even clearly see which section you're working on, what is the question, what are the options, right? And of course, in the CENTA TPO test, in the multiple choice, there are always going to be 4 options, out of which 1 option is correct and 3 options are going to be incorrect. And you can move between sections, move from one section to another. It's quite flexible that way. Moving on to the verbal communication test. So the verbal communication test is for 30 minutes, and this is a very simple way of how we do it. We do it on a Zoom platform. So you have Zoom breakout rooms. All the prelims candidates are invited to, they're given a Zoom link, invited to a Zoom meeting. And once you join, there'll be a center coordinator who will be putting you in respective breakout rooms. And in the breakout room, the subject matter expert or the center coordinator will be waiting. The evaluator will be waiting for you, who will then share 2 questions. So, video 1 is done first. The question is shared with you. You get 5 minutes to prepare and then 5 minutes to present. And it's for a total of 15 marks. Similarly, the same process then repeats with video 2. Again, once you're done with video 1, video 2 question is posed in front of you. You get 5 minutes to prepare and 5 minutes to present. So this is a snapshot of what the verbal communication test looks like. Great. So that was a little bit about the TPO in a nutshell, what the format looks like. What's a little bit about, like just giving you a little flavor or a glimpse of what it looks like, what the experience looks like for about, taking the TPO itself. So on that note, I'm going to now move on to our partners, because like I mentioned earlier, without our partners, we wouldn't really have an initiative like the TPO. So our partners so far for 2022-23 are Reliance Foundation, the main partners Reliance Foundation, and along with them we also have Education World, who's our additional partner. So Reliance Foundation and Education World are our primary partners, and then we have few more additional partners like the ones that are given on the screen. To name a few: the University of Buckingham, University of California, Santa Cruz, Oxford University Press, InSpirit, Tag Hive, Tata Institute of Social Science, Key Education Foundation, Teach for India Online, to name a few. And it wouldn't be fair if we do not mention about our partners over the years who have supported us year on year in this initiative. And some of them are here listed on the screen. There's Bharti Foundation, there's Think Startup, there's Central Square Foundation, Varkey Foundation, Michael and Susan Dell, Lenovo, Pearson, T4, The Hindu, HCL, and many more. So, why do we even have partners, right? What do the partners bring to the table? So, all the partners bring many interesting prizes and rewards, some of which are listed in the screen for you. The Reliance Foundation Teacher Awards are given every year to the winners of CENTA TPO, which is a cash award worth rupees 20 lakhs. I do want to inform though that this Reliance Foundation Teacher Awards is restricted to India based participants. Rest of the awards are open to all. We also have premium training opportunities from the Oxford University Press, University of Buckingham, University of California, Santa Cruz, and CENTA itself. OUP, which is Oxford University Press, has training programs affiliated with Oxford University. University of Buckingham has projects where winners will get an opportunity to be mentored on a short research project by professors along with a certificate of teaching excellence. UCSC, which is University of California, Santa Cruz, is offering curated trainings and enrollment into their summer program in California, which happens in California. So you get to be there physically in California. InSpirit is providing access to a one of a kind software suite, which is a 3D and VR toolkit for science toppers. So, as you can see, there's a bunch of different professional development and growth opportunities that are part of this year's prizes. Coming to Education World, they will be providing media recognition for the winning teachers and the schools with the maximum number of winners. We also have exclusive opportunities this year by Tata Institute of Social Science for toppers from B.Ed colleges. So as you can see, we have not just tried to include a different set of professional development opportunities, but we also really want to this year, capture different people from different parts of the education sector itself, right? So there are teachers in schools, there are students who are student teachers rather, who are studying in B.Ed colleges, there are government school teachers. So we're trying to include a different sort of exclusive prices for different sectors within education itself, as well as international prizes this year. So, also, I would like to point out that winners will receive digital badges, certificates, and a fully confidential scorecard. So, unless you have registered on behalf of your institution or from their side, your scorecard is fully confidential, fully personal, available only to you, and it's up to you if you want to share it with anybody else in your network, right? Great. So, in a nutshell, this is what CENTA TPO is about: to reward, recognize, and celebrate the teaching profession. We are very thankful that a large number of partners, be it corporate, government, legends like Brian Lara or Harvard professor Fernando Reimers, have been supporting this initiative over the years. Also, for many teachers like you who have been participating year on year and just encouraging this and really looking at this as a way to reward, recognize, and celebrate teachers. So we have one such example with us today. Like I mentioned earlier, we have Sumit with us, who will now be taking over, of course. He's an inspiring example of someone who's a multiple time TPO topper. So before we actually hand it over to you and you get started on the next section of today's webinar, I would love for you to share with our teachers, with our audience, your experience of taking the TPO? Firstly, which track? Of course, I already mentioned you took the economics, senior secondary economics track, but you can talk about the track you took. What made you attempt the TPO? How has the experience been for you, and what has happened since? And just a little bit about your experience to motivate others to also take it up and emerge as winners like you did. So over to you, Sumit.
Thanks, Shruti, for taking us through. I think this is as comprehensive as it can be. At TPO, I see something in the chat where what is TPO? TPO is Teaching Professionals Olympiad for everyone. The other thing about TPO was that I took it in 2017 for the first time when I was, I think, going through, I think I was on Facebook or something, and I saw something called it Teaching Professionals Olympiad, and I was wondering, oh, this seems exciting. I mean, something for teachers. Let's jump right in. And that was 2017. Now I realize that was the second, third edition, perhaps, of the TPO. And when I took that up, I was excited about the fact that teachers were getting the chance to sort of take something wherein you get recognized for it, because I think as teachers, I think all of us keep working year after year, but I think we sometimes also crave for that international recognition at times, wherein it's exciting to see ourselves getting celebrated. So I think that was the key that I took it. I think the first year I think I had the third rank in economics. Specifically, I did not have an international rank. And then that got me kind of motivated to look at my practice again, because I was looking at, not just teaching students, but also reflecting into what I was doing, because I had this chance to get assessed. I mean, I wouldn't say assessed actually, because when we think about Olympiads, we think about assessment, but I had this chance to assess myself, more than CENTA assessing me or giving me a reward for it. I think it was a reward to just sit down and see what was happening. And then in 2018, I took the Olympiad again. And when I took the Olympiad, I think that was a chance for me to sort of see what had happened over the last year, what were my practices, what had I learned about pedagogy and about my classroom communication, about my management of the classroom. And when I took that, I think I was pleased to see the result where I was the subject topper for economics, but I was also a national rank holder. And that kind of motivated me again to take the TPO. What I learned about myself was that teaching is a profession where you grow with experience, but you also grow with learning from each other. So the Olympiad is not just an exam, but it's a moment of learning. And I think I would want to foreground that in whatever you do. When you take the TPO, make sure that it's a moment of reflection. It's a moment of understanding deeply about who you are. That report really tells you about your strength areas and your areas that can be better, that you can improve on. It's not really it's a very positive reinforcement of what we do. Let me just put it that way. So what I would recommend for anyone taking the Teaching Professionals Olympiad is that make sure that you come as your authentic self. You've been teaching for all these years. Students have been really rewarded for what they've done. Now it's your chance to be recognized and to be celebrated. Because when I went to Dubai for the GSF, the Global Education Skills Forum, and met Brian Lara, but I saw all the fantastic sessions and saw the Global Teacher Prize being given. I think I still have goosebumps when I think about it. I think it was a real celebration of teaching and learning. So if you want to celebrate yourself and if you want to celebrate for people around you who are in the same profession, I would say take the TPO and take it just as a moment of deep reflection. On that note, I think we can move into the next section of the webinar, which is very, very essential, which is where you will be looking at some questions. I'll be taking you through these questions, and I'm sure many of us will be able to answer them. But just for clarity, let's have everyone answer them, and we can then also see why those answers are those answers. For this, I would particularly expect everybody to go to Menti. If everybody can go to Menti, that'll be great. For the first question, firstly, use your phones. You can also maybe go onto another browser, but a phone will be useful because then you can see real time what's happening. So maybe if you have a phone around you, or if you're on your phone, then just maybe open menti.com there itself. And you enter the passcodes. When you enter menti.com, it will ask you for the passcode. This is the passcode that you enter, which is 618195550. 6181. That's already in the messages. You can see the CENTA teams kindly put all of this in the message. So let's take a minute to maybe go there and then we can start off with our first question. Some thumbs up will be useful if you've already logged in, some sort of a reaction, whether you've been able to see it or not. If you can see it, great. I will just give another 30 seconds for everyone to go to menti.com and enter the passcode. It's a good opportunity to just sort of have a look on what the TPO could look like. Good practice. It's always nice to challenge ourselves. Perfect. Thank you so much. I can see some yeses and logged ins coming in. Great. Perfect. So let's move into the first question, if that's okay. The first question is, I'm going to read the question twice to you, and we then answer the question. These are questions. This question is from the area of subject expertise, which is your subject expertise of economics, I am presuming. If you're not an economics teacher, take a shot. This is from the topic liberalization. The question reads, and this is the first question we are doing, a newspaper article said that a few specific industry sectors no longer needed certain government permissions for operating. This is an example of which of the following? Disinvestment, B, economic stimulus, C, market clearing, D, liberalization. Again, a newspaper article said that a few specific industry sectors no longer needed certain government permissions for operating. This is an example of which of the following? Disinvestment, economic stimulus, market clearing, liberalization. Let's take about 30 seconds to answer this, and then we can go into Menti and check on what's happening. Wow, okay. We have about 14 responses. Is this an example of disinvestment, economic stimulus, market clearing, or liberalization? If you're just joining us, we are answering some questions that you can look at, that you might expect, questions like these in the teaching and the TPO. Okay. For those of you, again, who are answering here, let's not answer here. We have to go to menti.com. You can see that going in. Menti.com, and you enter the code. Great. Thank you so much, Ritu, for answering the question. Okay. So we can see 19 responses in. For just the sake of time, let's see what the correct answer is. The correct answer is been pointed out by most of you. That is option D, which is liberalization, simply because this here is reducing government controls on industry, while the other answers, for example, for market clearing, there is nothing on demand supply getting equal. Economic stimulus, however, comes a close second option. It could be the second best option. Yes, it can be because the industry is maybe growing, but a stimulus very specifically is when the government infuses money. So something on the more lines of having capital or something like that, which is where the government is spending money and giving that sort of boost to the industry. So not exactly that. So it's a second best option, but the best option or the correct answer is liberalization. And disinvestment, of course, is there is no government control shifting to, there's no government asset that is going into the private sector. So therefore, let's move into the second question. If you have any doubts, please post them in the comments and we'll see. Again, let's move in. Again, we are on menti.com. This is the password, which is 618195550. If you've just joined us, this is what you do. Yeah. And let's move into the second question. So again, this is from subject expertise, and this is from the topic market equilibrium, microeconomics. With private cab operators continuously increasing prices in a particular city, the government steps in and puts a price ceiling that is below the market equilibrium. Which of the following will therefore take place? Which of the following situations will take place because of the government step. Excess supply of cab rides, unmet demand for cab rides, increase in demand for cab rides, which is met by supply, or will there be no change? With private cab operators continuously increasing prices in a particular city, the government steps in and puts a price ceiling that is below the market equilibrium. Which of the following situations will therefore take place? Excess supply of cab rides, unmet demand for cab rides, increase in demand for cab rides, which is met by supply, or will there be no change? Let's take about 30 seconds to answer this question, and then we see what everybody's response has been. Again, let's not answer here. We are answering on Menti. You can see the line which is moving right at the bottom of the screen. To answer, you log on to menti.com and you enter the code 618195550. Can you guys look at that question? Can you guys see the question on Menti? Because nobody's answered. Oh, okay, one person. Honey, ma'am, if you might want to check what's happening with the Menti, maybe it's simple enough if you go to menti.com and then enter the code. The CENTA team's putting the instructions again and again, so that could help. Okay, so we have more variety of answers here. We have, but the correct option, I mean, the most popular option, let me put it that way first, is option C. But unfortunately, that is not the right answer. Let's give ourselves another 20 seconds. Oh, actually, the answer is right there, which is option B, actually. Option B is unmet demand for cab rides, because when the government puts in the price ceiling, which is below the equilibrium price, if I were to just show you, if I were to draw the diagram of demand supply in the air, then basically the government is saying that I'm charging you below the equilibrium price. So basically, the demand will exceed the supply because your equilibrium price is going to be above and your ceiling is going to be below. So your demand will be more, but the supply will be less. So basically, what you will have is a situation of excess supply. Excess demand. You'll have a situation of excess demand because the demand is going to be higher at a lower price than the equilibrium, but the supply is going to be lower. So you'll have unmet demand. That is, the number of people who are demanding will not be able to get the cab rides. And the others will, of course, the suppliers have no incentive to supply more because they're getting a lower price. So option C is not right. And excess supply will, of course, not happen. That would have happened if the price of the government was set above the equilibrium. If the government said that the minimum price I'm going to charge you is above the equilibrium, then you would have had excess supply. But price ceiling means you cannot go to the equilibrium. You have to stay below the equilibrium, and therefore you will have excess demand. I hope that was clear. And of course, it's not a case of no change. There will be a change in the market because the government has intervened. Okay, let's move to question number 3, if that's okay. Again, we're answering through Menti, and this is the detail of the Menti. Go to menti.com and you enter the passcode. Okay, let's move to the question. The question is, this is from a subject-specific PCK, which is pedagogical content knowledge. Miss Frida started a class talking about research work of Abhijit Banerjee and Esther Duflo, who recently won the Nobel Prize in Economics. Banerjee and Duflo undertook a series of field experiments to measure credibly what kind of policies can make a difference to poverty. For example, they would provide a certain input and see how the poor would react to that. Which of these concepts or learning objectives would this be most relevant for? Again, Miss Frida started a class talking about the research work of Abhijit Banerjee and Esther Duflo, who recently won the Nobel Prize in Economics. Banerjee and Duflo undertook a series of field experiments to measure credibly what kind of policies can make a difference to poverty. For example, they would provide a certain input and see how the poor would react to that. Which of these concepts or learning objectives would this be most relevant for? Most. How diminishing utility works in practice, leakages and injections in an economy, price demand relationship, rational behavior in different contexts. Let's take 30 seconds to answer this question on the Menti. Slightly long question, so I'm hoping everybody has been able to deal with that. Get your head around that. Okay, let's see the Menti. Great. I hope now that you can see the Menti because the slides change, so you can see the Menti now. Kaushik, you might be able to see the Menti now. So once I read out the question and when we go to the Menti and the slide changes is when the question will open to you, basically. So take your time to think through the question. I mean, you don't instantly have to answer, so you can take your time while I'm reading the question. So when the slide changes is when you'll be able to see the question, which is great because you have time to think. So we're seeing 3 options getting picked. Let's see. Let's give ourselves more, maybe 20 more seconds. I understand it was a question which was slightly long. Okay. Option C seems to be the most popular. No. Oh, sorry. Okay, I must wait. Okay. Option D is catching up now. Let's see whether option D catches up. All right. All 4 answers have been taken. All 4 can't be correct, unfortunately. One has to be the correct answer. So the correct answer for this one is D, which is rational behavior in different contexts. Because basically, sorry, you can see that. So basically, a fundamental underpinning of Banerjee and Duflo's work to see that the poor are making rational choices compared to typical views of the poor. Therefore, this is a great hook to introduce the idea that all segments of society make rational choices in their context. So, in other words, we are looking at what policies or what the poor would react to in a certain manner. So, what is the rational behavior in their context? We are not really referring to price demand in that sense because the poor usually have very heavy budget constraints. So, we are not really looking at that. Though the policies that are from the work that is being suggested, they can have some sort of leakage and injection. I mean, yes, you can talk about how there is savings, so there's a leakage, or how the government is infusing money, so there's an injection, but it's not really a very close concept. Again, the idea is it's most relevant, and most means that what's the closest thing that you can introduce with this concept. So what you can introduce is how the poor would respond rationally to a certain idea. So it's D. I hope that is clear. Let's move into the 4th question, if that's okay. Sorry, if you want any more explanation, I'm happy to give that. So if you want, I can quickly run through the other options. If you have any confusion, put that in and I'll respond to that specifically. Let's move to MCQ number 4, if that's okay. Please do put your doubts in the chat. That'll be useful. Okay, again, we're looking at Menti just for everybody's sake. I'm sure everybody's accustomed to that now. we can move into MCQ number 4, which is there was a news article. This is again subject specific PCK. The topic is globalization. There was a news article that the US and China had got into a trade war with tariffs imposed on both ends. Students in Miss Amita's classroom wanted to know if both economies will now not have access at all to certain goods and services. Miss Amita wanted to teach them that tariffs may not completely stop access. Which of the following economics topics is most important? Again, the word most is there. So all the options can seem close, but most important for her to cover prior to this discussion. Black markets, balance of trade, policy shifts, global supply chains. Again, there was a news article that the US and China had got into a trade war that with tariffs being imposed on both ends. Students in Ms. Amita's class want to know if both economies will now not have access at all to certain goods and services. Ms. Amita wants to teach them that tariffs may not completely stop access. Which of the following economics topics is most important for her to cover prior to this discussion? Black markets, balance of trade, policy shifts, global supply chains. Think about it, and then we'll put on to the Menti. So don't worry, the Menti, if you can't see Menti, you'll see it as soon as we move to the Menti. We can move to the Menti if that's okay with everyone. This is regarding question 3. When we have two close choices, then how to eliminate and arrive at the correct answer? Let me just take on after the next question. I'll quickly have a discussion on that one. Good question, Gomati, though. Wonderful. So we can see that option D is taking it away, while option A, B, and C are, well, A is not even open its account. B and C are fairly less preferred. Let's see. Let's give ourselves about 20 more seconds, maybe. Okay, so it seems that option D is taking it away, which is correct. Option D is correct. That is, you will have to teach global supply chains before you move into the discussion, because somewhere or the other, it's entirely possible that China was relying on the US perhaps for something, but now it moves to Brazil. So, in other words, there is a difference in the way goods are being transported from one country to another. So, it's very much possible that China is, which was relying on a certain country, or the US was relying on China, but they'll have to find maybe perhaps other countries. So, they could be seeing, let's say, lower prices from another country, while the US was the more preferred destination to buy something. But let's say because of the tariffs, the prices have increased. So another country which is seeming more preferred now will be the country which will supply more of their material to China. So in other words, there is overall a shift in the way that global supply will happen. So you will have to teach that. Black markets can be there. Black markets are important, perhaps to an extent, but international trade continues to happen despite them. So it's not really very relevant to this particular discussion. Policy shifts must have been taught before talking about the trade war, because somewhere or the other, there is that need to understand policy before you start explaining. The idea that countries put tariffs. So these are policies. So you'll have to do policy shifts before even discussing that there is a trade war. And with balance of trades, yes, that's the difference between countries' imports and exports. But that also can be an implication but really that is not really going to help us in understanding what will happen to the country situation, whether they'll be able to get some goods or not. So this is relevant, but not that relevant. So the most important topic for them, for the teacher to be teaching, is global supply chains, because that will be the implication of the trade war, basically, if that's okay. Moving on to question number 5. That's again a long one. I let you start reading that yourself, and then while I read it. Conversation, this is again from subject specific PCK, the topic being census versus sample. Conversation in an economics class on census versus sample among teachers, T, and her students. Teacher says, Rajni, when should you use a sample instead of a census? Rajni says, when the population is too large to cover fully. Irfan, do you agree with Rajni? Yes, but it's also dependent on how homogeneous the population is. Which of the following is the best? Again, these words are very important, and I will reflect on a minute on the idea of best most. Best follow-up question that the teacher can ask Irfan to further test his conceptual understanding. That is, if you want to collect opinions on education from an entire district versus from one neighborhood, where will you use sample versus census and why? Would you treat your class as a homogeneous population with respect to the language spoken at home? Why or why not? In our parliamentary elections, why do all constituencies have voting instead of taking a sample of constituencies from every state? And option D, for the recent meeting with the principal, why were only class monitors invited rather than randomly selecting one student from each class? Again, this was a conversation between the teacher and the student. As you can read, which of the questions that are indicated here are the best, is the one of which is one of them is the best follow-up question for the teacher to ask Irfan about the homogeneity of the population. Let's take about 20 more seconds to read this, and then we move into answering on the Menti. Also, sorry, just because I'm looking away a little. So that is just because I have another screen on, because I want to be very precise in what I tell you. So hence that is just for my reference, because I can see two things at the same time. I'm not being rude or anything. Okay, we can move on to the Menti. That's okay. Now you should be able to see the Menti. Okay, so just for the sake of time, I'm going to see, oh, B and C are right there. Oh, C is kind of taken it away. So C is the correct answer for this one, because, well, here in option 1, if you can go to the question, because then the options are clear. The option A, where the option is whether we need to collect entire district versus from our neighborhood, the student has already understood that is for large sizes, samples must be used. Option D is correct, because by asking this question, the teacher is bringing in a third factor for census versus sample. That is where individual opinions matter. That is, you need everybody's vote rather than a samples vote. This deepens the student's understanding, because you're adding one more factor, that is not just homogeneity, but also the fact that you need individual opinions. Sometimes you don't just need a samples opinion, you need every single person's opinion to select the right person to the seat of being an MP or an MLM. Okay, so on that note, I think we are done with questions. And just to answer the best and the most, please remember, you have to be very careful about what you're selecting. The most is what is the most relevant, that is what is the most urgent thing or the next thing that is important. Some things can be far off, so that logic building is something which you will have to instantly connect to. That is, what's the thing that comes after, so immediate, or what is the most serious, that is the biggest problem that you can face. So that's basically your judgment. And with more practice questions like these, for example, with more with going over this webinar again, I think you'll be able to come through, more you think about it even after the webinar. Thank you so much for your time. Over to Shruti again.
I hope everybody can hear me. Harsha, hope you've added me back. Everybody can hear me. Maybe you can just... okay, great. I think I'm back. Sumit, maybe you can just give me an indication because I'm not able to see if I've been added back. Okay, great. Looks like I'm back. So, so thank you so much, Mr. Sumit, for taking everybody through each of the 5 questions. Of course, senior secondary economics in general, it's not the easiest track to crack. You have cracked it multiple times, but it's not that easy. And also the questions tend to be a bit longer and they require a lot more of internalization and thinking. And I'm not sure if we were fair in giving enough amount of time for all the teachers to take it in, internalize, think about it and answer. But we have to do this within the 1 hour. So I hope everybody had a good fun time while answering the questions, and we saw so many of you taking part and so many of you getting answers correct as well. So I think that's a great feedback for us also, that teachers are understanding what they're reading and internalizing it, and they're able to answer. So we hope you had fun. And this is exactly how the TPO is going to be. The MCQ test is going to have questions like this, which really makes you think, which really makes you dig deep into your subject and then think about the answer. And like Mr. Sumit very rightly pointed out, you will have questions which are like most relevant, best, least relevant, etc., which makes you think one step further, right? So that was about the MCQ. So thank you so much, Sumit, for coming today and taking everyone through it. I think I had a great time watching it as audience. I'm sure the teachers who participated had a great time as well. We hope you had a good time as well. Thank you so much for being part of today's webinar. I'll now
Thank you.
quickly move on to... Thank you so much. Yeah. I'll now quickly move on to the verbal communication test. So like I mentioned earlier, there are going to be 2 questions that you will be asked. There's video 1, which is a subject-specific verbal evaluation. So what happens, like I said, here is the CENTA coordinator in the session will give you, or the expert or the faculty will give you the question, and you have 3 options that you can choose from for video 1, which is the subject-specific verbal evaluation. So here, for example, it's just a demo or example question. Choose any one of the following topics for introduction in your classroom, a topic that you want to introduce to your students. Causes of poverty, discriminatory tariff policy, deregulation, of industrial sector. These are your 3 options. You have to pick any one of these topics. You will get 5 minutes to prepare and then 5 minutes to present. So like I said, this is the one that's testing for your subject skills, subject knowledge. And then moving on to video 2, which is pure communication skills. Choose any one of the following topics and share your thoughts. Does use of technology affect student learning? What steps can you take if parents of a student are not attending scheduled parent-teacher meetings? When should skill-based education begin for students? So these are examples of what the verbal evaluation or verbal communications test looks like. 5 minutes to prepare, 5 minutes to present, and you're given the topics on the spot. And then you need to pick and prepare and present. Okay, great. So now that we have finished, we have, deep dived into the 2 parts of the TPO. We have looked at MCQs, we've looked at verbal communication test samples. The question arises how to prepare for CENTA International TPO. So you don't have to worry about that. This year, we have come up with a TPO resources page. As you can see on the link, it should also be present in the added to your comment section by the team. So please Go ahead and click on it. This is going to be your one-stop shop for everything you need to prepare for the CENTA International TPO. So you can find sample questions across subjects. Today's webinar, we took up 5 questions. In the TPO resource page, you can actually explore the page and find questions across every section of the TPO. There's live webinars. So all of these webinars that we are hosting, you can register for it through the TPO resource page. There's recorded webinars, past webinars that you can see, a lot of free learning resources, guides to prepare for the TPO. There are instruction manuals for the MCQ test and the verbal communication test. There's also a Curious Corner where we add new resources every day and many, many more updates that we're making every day to this page. So please feel free to go and explore the page. And it's the centa.org. I mean, the link is available. It's centa.org/TPO resources. It's also there in your comment section. So it could also help you decide if you even want to take part in something like this. So it's either for those of you who think that I want to first explore and see if this is something I want to do, and then take up the sample questions, look at the syllabus. We do have syllabus also for each of your subjects, and then decide if you want to register for the TPO. Or if you have registered for the TPO already, then please make ample use of this page to prepare well for the test. Okay, so now that we have spoken about sample questions, we have looked at the overview of TPO, we have seen how you can prepare for it, the basic question, how to register for the CENTA International TPO. So very simple, 3 steps. Go to centa.org TPO 2022. Again, the link will be present in the comments. Click on register now. There's a blue button, register now button. Just click on it. Fill the registration form. It's a very, very simple 3-4 field form. You just have to enter your name, number, you'll get an OTP, like very simple process to register for it, and then pay. So the cost for the TPO is rupees 990 plus GST, and it's just a one-time cost. So if you pay for the prelims, you do not have to pay for the finals again if you do qualify. So it's a one-time payment, and as you can see on the screen, and you can also see it sliding on your windows on your screen, there is a coupon code JAN9TPO which can actually get you a 10% discount. So would request all of you to avail the coupon code and actually get the discount. So please do go ahead and register in big numbers. And like I said, the whole mission of the CENTA TPO is to reward, recognize, and celebrate. We would love to see a lot of economics teachers and also beyond, right, taking part in this year's TPO. So please feel free to go and register for the TPO using the discount coupon present on the screen, and you can see it in your screens as well. And on that note, I would like to end today's webinar. Once again, I thank Mr. Sumit for making time from his very, very busy schedule and being available today and sharing his expertise, his tips and tricks, and everything that he has learned from his experience of the TPO. I would also love to thank all of you for patiently staying back, even though we started a bit late, and also staying with us, participating, interacting, and giving your best. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, everyone. Good evening, and see you next time.